John is a hardworking, filial boy who always has boundless love for his grandparents. He grew up in a small village where life was difficult, but his eyes were always bright with hope. His grandparents were old and weak, their strength was exhausted, but they still saved every meal to raise him. To help his family every day after school, John took a small knife and went to the forest to cut bamboo shoots to sell. Days passed in poverty. Poverty clung to me and did not let go. The society around him is no better. Prices are escalating. Instability is increasing. People gradually lose trust in each other. But John still believes in something bigger, a light that he cannot yet reach. One hot summer afternoon, the red sun was like a block of embers floating above the forest, radiating heat as if it wanted to burn everything. The air was thick and moisture rising from the ground made John's every step heavier. He weaved through the dense foliage, his old shirt stuck to his back with sweat. His hand trembled as he tightly grasped the small knife, his eyes fixed on the green bamboo shoots rising from the dry ground. But as soon as he bent down to cut down a young bamboo shoot, his mind suddenly staggered. A wave of dizziness came over him, as if someone had drained his strength. John's breathing became rapid, his heart beating wildly in his chest. His eyes dimmed, the sunlight's rays breaking into flickering halos. His knees buckled, his hands tried to grab a nearby tree trunk, but didn't have enough strength. Another shock came, then darkness swallowed everything. John didn't know how long he was unconscious, but when he opened his eyes, he realized he was no longer in the forest. Before his eyes was an endless road, paved with transparent stones that radiated gentle light. On both sides of the road, rows of trees emit a pale yellow light. Their leaves gently vibrate as if they are breathing with everything. The surrounding air was fresh, with the scent of flowers he had never known. In the sky, light does not come from the sun, but from a magical light source that spreads throughout space. The sky is like a magical blue silk strip, dotted with sparkling stars even though it is not night. John walked, his feet did not touch the ground, but seemed to be gently lifted by an invisible force. In the distance, a figure gradually appeared. It was a man wearing a white iodine, a gentle face, and penetrating eyes that seemed to be able to see through his soul. "John, you came here for a reason. Your time is not over yet, but you must learn important things before returning." The deep voice rang out, powerful but not intimidating. John stammered, Who are you? Where is this?" The man smiled. "I am Jesus. You are in a place outside of time, where your soul can see the truth." John's heart beat loudly. He had heard his grandparents talk about him, but he never thought he would stand before him like this. "But why are you here?" Jesus looked at him, his eyes shining with deep sadness. "Because humanity is going down the wrong path, and you are one of the people chosen to help them turn back. You must see, must understand, before it is too late." As soon as his words ended, the space around John suddenly rotated. The ground beneath his feet seemed to vanish, giving way to an ocean of sparkling light. A cool breeze blew, carrying with it the pure scent of unprecedented flowers. Before his eyes, a giant golden gate slowly opened, leading into a magnificent paradise. John walked in and was speechless at the scene before his eyes. A valley stretching endlessly, hills covered with bright flowers swaying to the rhythm of the wind. Clear streams flow through glowing rapids, creating gentle sounds like sacred music. The sky has no sun, but the whole space is covered with a warm light, shimmering like the halo of life itself. In the distance, crystal towers rise high, sparkling like gems in the blue sky. In the air, silver birds gently circled, radiating gentle light like stars falling to earth. The air here is not only fresh, but also brings a feeling of absolute serenity, as if all earthly worries have been washed away. John touched the ground, but it was not rough sand, but a layer of soft silk, as smooth as clouds embracing his steps. The surrounding trees rose high, their leaves emitted a gentle light, and each gentle wind shook them, causing them to emit sparkling golden dust, like stars broken in the middle of the day. Everything is so beautiful that it surpasses any words that can describe it. John stood still, his heart fluttering at this unreal beauty. Where are you? Is it a dream or reality? Then from the middle of that magical space, a voice rang out, deep, authoritative, but also extremely gentle. He placed his hand on John's shoulder, and immediately a wave of dizziness overtook his body. The space around him changed, pulling him into another reality. Before his eyes, the year 2025 appeared clearly like a vivid but horrifyingly distorted picture. The city is engulfed in an artificial night, not because of lack of light, but because of the small sparks of war, of violence that burns everything. The deserted streets were filled with burned car bodies. The windows of buildings were smashed, each piece of debris reflecting the flickering firelight. The sound of sirens echoed endlessly, mixed with the screams of people fleeing the chaos. John saw separated families and skinny children huddled under bridges, their eyes empty and without the light of childhood. Adults, haggard faces, trudged heavily on the trash-filled sidewalk, their eyes filled with despair. Others rushed at each other, fighting for the scarce remaining pieces of food. Hatred clings to society like an invisible ghost. Gunfire rang out in the sky. A bomb exploded in the middle of the square, tossing small bodies like puppets with broken strings. John saw blood-stained hands reaching out for help, but no one responded. A man fell right in front of him, his eyes wide open and lifeless, his body motionless amid the chaos of people. John's heart was pounding, his breathing was rapid. He couldn't believe what he was witnessing. Is this really the future? He turned to Jesus, his voice hoarse. Why? Why did things turn out like that? Could it be that no one can stop them? He placed his hand on his shoulder, gently but firmly. There is still hope if people know how to turn around. But that hope is fragile. And John, you are one of the people who brings that light to them. John nodded, but his heart felt like there was an invisible rock weighing him down. The images I just witnessed are still imprinted in my mind. Every desperate face, every scream still echoes in my heart. He couldn't turn his back on that truth, but at the same time, he didn't know if he had the strength to change anything. His hands clenched, his breathing became heavy. His eyes met the steadfast gaze of Jesus, and in that moment, he knew he could not turn back. This mission is not just an option, but an inevitable path. John felt fear rising in his chest as painful scenarios appeared clearly before his eyes. The once bustling city is now just a ghost of desolation. The roads are full of cracks. High-rise buildings collapsed into piles of rubble, covered with ash. On the wide boulevards, floodwaters rushed through, carrying cars, debris, and even helpless people clinging in despair. In the sky, there were no longer towers glowing with lights, but only black smoke rising from the destroyed areas. Screams rang out everywhere, sirens blared like a warning bell about the end of the world. People ran away in panic. Some jostled, some fell down and never got up again. Storms swept through with terrible power, blowing everything in their path, tearing even solid buildings apart. And amid that chaotic scene, fire burned fiercely, devouring every street that Michael had ever known. He realized that familiar landmarks, beloved states and cities in America, were now only cruel scars on the world map. John looked at Jesus, his voice choked, his eyes sad. Why is all this happening? Jesus looked at him, his eyes not only filled with love, but also with deep seriousness. He sighed, then gently answered, "These challenges are not punishments. They are reminders, signals from nature, for people to return to truly important values." Although sadness and suffering still exist, deep down, there is still hope. John began to witness a series of images filled with light, glowing with life and love. Communities that were divided by natural disasters are now united, standing firmly together. Together they rebuilt the destroyed houses, not only with strength, but also with hearts full of love. Yesterday's strangers now embrace each other like blood relatives. No longer any distance, only human connection. John saw a family that lost everything in a fire. Their house is now just a pile of ashes. But the miracle is that they are not alone. They were surrounded by neighbors and friends, people they never knew, providing food, clothing, and comfort. Outstretched arms, gentle words, comforting eyes, all create a picture of kindness. Even though the loss was so great that families still smiled, not because they did not suffer, but because they knew that, in the darkest hours, love was still present and was the only source of light to guide them through the darkness. Those images made John's heart sob, because he understands that no matter how vast the world is, no matter how great the challenges are, love, compassion, and solidarity are still forces that cannot be broken. He looked at him, then stretched out his hand and pointed towards the rising sun in the sky. Like the light of dawn, even though the night is long, when the sun rises, all darkness will be dispelled. Humanity too, even though it is going astray, just needs to return to love, compassion, and faith. Everything will be healed. Jesus pointed to a cloud flying across the sky, forming the shape of a glowing heart. Look at the good things around, the blooming flowers, the gentle smiles, and the care between people. They are light, hope, and signs of true love. When people choose love instead of fear, miracles will appear. Never forget that, even in challenges, love is always present and guides us. John suddenly realized a profound truth. Disasters are not a punishment, but a test to awaken humanity's conscience. They do not come to destroy, but to help people understand the value of love, solidarity, and responsibility for each other. It is in the darkest hours that light can shine most strongly. Humanity can fall in the face of difficulties, but it can also stand up from the ashes if they know how to put their heart above all else. Jesus said, "Challenge is an opportunity for humanity to prove its strength and kindness." It is in the darkest times that people have the opportunity to shine brightest. A feeling of relief washed over John as he understood that humanity still had a chance to change. Images of compassion, of people holding hands to overcome challenges, ignited his faith. But at the same time, another worry crept into my mind. Is it too late? Will people be able to realize this before everything completely collapses? A hesitation flashed in his eyes. His heart was heavy with that question. Jesus looked at him, his eyes full of understanding. "John, don't let fear dim your light. The future is not a predetermined thing, but what people choose now. When you bring love, forgiveness, and kindness to the world, you are sowing seeds of hope, and just one seed is enough to sprout into a forest. They do not come to destroy, but to help people understand the value of love, solidarity, and responsibility for each other." John felt his heart flutter. "You are just a poor boy. How can you change the world?" But Jesus saw something in him that he had never realized. "What do I need to do, sir?" He smiled. "Come back. Live, spread this message. Teach people about love, about how to save themselves before saving the world. It's not physical strength, but the power of the heart that will change everything." John felt a strong flow of energy enter his body. The image before his eyes gradually faded. Light enveloped him. John opened his eyes and took a deep breath. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, illuminating his face. The sound of chirping forest birds rang out somewhere, but the first thing he noticed were the worried voices around him. "The boy's awake. He's awake!" John blinked, looking around in surprise. A group of passers-by had surrounded him, their worried faces now relaxed into expressions of joy. A woman bent down, her voice gentle. "Son, are you okay? We found you lying unconscious here. We thought it was too late." John felt a wave of warmth well up inside him. He nodded, feeling the new strength flowing through his veins. But most of all, the connection between people. Hands reached out, helping him stand up. They didn't know him, but they were still worried and helped without hesitation. "You need to go home, right? Let us give you a hand." John nodded. Not only was he revived, but he also witnessed human love in the simplest actions. As they helped him through the forest, toward the small village, John knew that he was not alone, and that this world, no matter how dark, still had the light of hope. He returned home, bringing with him a change that he couldn't even describe in words. Every word and every action he said from that day was different from before. He is no longer just a boy selling bamboo shoots. He began to share what he saw, telling people about the future, about the changes they needed to make before it was too late. At first, no one believed him, but then a few people stopped to listen. One person, then two people. Gradually, the whole village began to pay attention. The lessons about love, kindness, and how to live not only for yourself but also for each other spread far and wide. People who only know selfishness gradually learn to open their hearts. Fractured families gradually find connection again. The change spread from village to village, then to the city. And then, John realized, change doesn't necessarily have to start with big things. It may start from a small heart, but it is strong enough to shake the whole world. John was reborn, not just physically, but spiritually, and he begins his mission, a mission that will change the destiny of humanity forever.